I just took my testosterone. That makes me officially 1 month on T. I I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going through a lot of personal struggle. I tried to ignore it some on the day it was happening. I tried to not let the full impact of it sink in, and I've been trying to let it, absorb my feelings about it. I've been trying to let it happen over days instead of all at once, because if I let it happen all at once, I would have been probably ready to just I still sort of am, to just drop everyone I've ever known who voted for Trump. I've been trying not to talk about stuff happening in the world as much, not because I don't care, but because I'm so deeply offended by it. And here I am 1 month on T, and one of the biggest things that I'm feeling is shame, and transitioning has been helping me not feel shame at all about myself. And then I've always been ashamed of where I come from, and that they're the kind of people who do shit like this. On the 6th, a bunch of people got together, even though there's been 60 cases thrown out of court at this point because there's no evidence of voter fraud. They got together by several thousand to protest the scammed, cheated election that wasn't stolen or cheated at all. Every single story of voter fraud has been debunked. Literally all of them. The only voter fraud found, period, was actually in favor of Trump. There's been zero voter fraud found not in favor of Trump. That's the facts from the states, from the people doing the work, from the actual people investigating. That's the truth. But I come from a long family group of just a long list of names. My aunts, my uncles, my cousins, my father, my birth mother, some of my siblings and their spouses, just ranting and raving. I grew up in a cult-like mentality, and not everyone chose to get out like me. A lot of people, the majority of the people that I come from, that I'm related to, chose to stay in the cult. And I am so ashamed of where I come from. Not because we've lived in absolute poverty and destitution my entirety of my history on both sides. It's been pretty much just nonstop, generation to generation poverty. My ancestors were indentured servants and slaves to Vikings, and indentured servants to mostly the English. But my ancestors don't come from high and mighty people. A lot of us died building railroads for this country. I don't have people who were rich enough to be slavers, for instance. So I don't have to be ashamed about coming directly from slave traders. Instead, we were slaves way, way, way back. We were slaves to the Vikings, but we've never actually had slaves, at least in my particular family line. You know, a certain amount of, I guess, pride was supposed to be instilled in me about how we always get through, even though we're always the underdog or whatever in my family. And yeah, we still get some of the white privilege just because of the color of our skin, but at least we weren't slavers. And in reality, the people that I come from are not good people, and they are convinced that they're right and that they're the only ones who are good and everyone else is bad. And there's several things that are just so absolutely terrible about it. The first one being that you would want other people to go to hell. That you would believe so strongly in such a terrible place and genuinely think it's the worst place that a person could ever go, that it's the worst thing that could ever happen to someone, and then want the majority of the human race to go there. That you're the only one who's in on the little secret and gonna get to go to the good place, and everyone else is gonna get to go to hell. Like, and taking pride in that and feeling good about that. That's terrible. That's absolutely atrocious. You cannot be a good person and feel that way. Secondly, that you genuinely would rather pursue the most paranoid reasoning rather than rational reasoning. That you would rather go to the deepest, darkest place until you find something that really gets your paranoia going, rather than just accept the boring, plain old facts. You're in a constant state of fear-mongering and hyperbullying and intentional isolation with that fear-mongering. You donate what tiny, tiny amount of whatever you have. You're in poverty, or maybe you're clawing your way out of poverty into middle class. And you donate all of what you've got. And no wonder we never have anyone who rises above that. Because I come from a long line of people who don't believe in a full ideal and instead insist on one single person's vision. Everyone listens to one person. And right now that one person is Trump. And then everyone just falls in line. And it used to be Bush. It used to be Reagan. It's just nonstop. And you can look at the history of how the economies under Republican leadership are just absolutely destroyed, and then under Democratic leadership, they get better. You can look at the world history of how it's just been non-stop violence from Christianity since the dawn of the death cult that is Christianity. People being just genocided and slaughtered if they were refusing to convert. And I feel like the people I come from would like to go back to that you have to be Christian or else. And magically their religion is the religion. And they go on and on about Sharia law, but they want Sharia law. They just want it to look like their version of Sharia law. When I was raised, not only was there no room for an intersex kid, but there was also no room for a girl to be anything other than groomed. And as a man who's experienced the true horror of that, grooming girls is like absolutely atrocious. As a man who can look at what's being done by some people to girls, it's evil. You can't be a good person and be doing that and thinking that that's a good thing. Brainwashing poor little children as they grow up to try to make them a perfect, submissive, docile girl with no dreams and no hope for a better future. That the best that she can ever do is pop out babies. That is her only purpose. To please her husband and to pop out babies. It's like destroying people even before they got together at the Capitol. At noon, Trump gave a speech. Things he actually said in his speech. Oh, this election was stolen from us, but we'll never give up. We'll never surrender. This isn't a time for weakness. This is a time for strength. This is a time when we will fight. And people act like amongst their side, amongst the cultists, they act like he didn't incite violence. They're so quick to say, oh, he told the violence to stop. Apparently none of them listened to his speech at noon. I couldn't listen to the whole thing. Then people start getting all riled up at that speech. People go attack innocent people who are just doing their freaking job. People died. And of course the police didn't do shit because it's a bunch of white folk. And they were not prepared at all in the first place because it was a bunch of white folk. Even though, what was it, in October, white nationalists was considered to be the most dangerous threat to the country. But who's in charge of the military? The president is. You know who didn't call in the National Guard until after 6? The president. Even though people were being shot, even though everything was being destroyed. People I'm related to think that was a victory because there were almost no arrests. I mean, the FBI is going now and trying to arrest some people, but in reality, the entire mob, for the most part, just got to walk away. One lady died, and some officers died, and there were, 14 arrests? 15, something like that, from the police officers, and then that was it. The police officers actually moved barricades, took selfies with them, the people attacking the Capitol. Every once in a while, one police officer would raise a nightstick at the top of the stairs trying to stand against the mob, but none of his buddies were helping him. So what's he gonna do? Die? Some of the officers did. Killed and murdered by frenzied fascists. Some of the people I'm related to are like, oh, it was all Antifa. And it's really obvious that no one who's one of our people was there. And it's like, okay, but everyone was wearing Proud Boy shirts. QAnon conspiracies. I mean, the QAnon shaman was there. People are like, oh, they weren't there. But the thing is a bunch of them went bragging about it. Putting their feet up on a desk, hands behind their head, bragging that it was them. It wasn't Antifa. They are very excited that they did it because they see it as a victory. Some of them. There are some of them who are like, oh, desperately trying to hide that they were there. People who got elected into office and don't want to lose their promotion they just got. Live streaming while they're walking around in a freaking mob. The entire thing was insurrection. And I keep hoping for prosecution. Trump didn't do a damn thing at all. Finally, at 4 p.m., Biden called for Trump to call off the mob, to stop the mob, because the mob wasn't stopping. The only thing that was going to stop the mob at that point was Trump, because it was his mob. They didn't care about the police, and the police weren't doing anything. And people's lives were at stake. So, of course, at 4:17, Trump makes a statement and tells everyone, oh, I love you, you're special, but go home, you made your point, good job, you're sweet, sweet little people, keep donating to me, I want all your money, but go home. He literally told them, we love you, you're special. To a mob who just attacked the Capitol building, innocent people inside. To a mob who just killed police officers. So the mob got to walk away. The mob didn't get arrested, didn't get prosecuted, didn't get treated like the people trying to start a civil war that they were. So they view it as a victory. They're celebrating that happened. And then there's a bunch of them, people I'm related to, who instead of calling it, oh, the wrath of God, are like, oh yeah, it wasn't really us, because they are horrified by it, but they don't want to believe that that's what they're part of. And they're so deep in the big dark hole, they would rather go deeper into it than come out. And that's what I come from. And yeah, I chose to leave it. And yeah, I am not one of them. But that I can even be associated with them in any way, shape, or form is just utterly shameful. The people that I come from are not good people. And they like to think that they're good people, but they treat other people like crap. They constantly judge them. They constantly put on fake airs. And they constantly support wrong, terrible things that don't help other people at all. They spend all their time ranting and raving and getting red in the face over people wanting to just live because it doesn't fall in line with what they want. I come from a long history of abuse. I come from generation after generation of abuse. I come from a long history of pedophiles and people with psych issues and paranoia. And they choose it. They're still doing it. There might be someone out there whose ancestor was a slave trader, and they're like saddened by that. And maybe they can relate to the shame that I feel somewhat. But it might have been that their ancestor was a slave trader over 100 years ago, and their family has moved on and done better things, and maybe even given back to the community or something by now. Who knows? Tried to help make up for it some way. My family's still doing it. To this day, still doing it. Terrible people. The kind of people who just want to ruin happiness for everyone else. And who hate women's rights. Who hate the LGBT plus community. Like despise anything that they don't think falls in line with what they demand. They insist that Trump is a servant of God, the voice of God. when in reality, he's not a good person. He's not a moral person. He's the kind of person you have to make excuses for all the time. But they're comfortable with that because they have to make excuses for their beliefs all the time. When you're constantly having to be in the defensive, defending like your theories and your opinions and treating them as facts, and constantly having to deny everything else that's coming at you that doesn't agree with your made up stuff, I don't know how you don't step away from it. I was 18 years old and I had more wisdom than people who are decades older than me. One of the best things that I ever did was transitioning. But one of the best things I ever did was also just to leave that. And when I left it, I was still 1 foot in it a little bit because I didn't want to miss the people and I didn't want to miss out on family get-togethers. And I look at it now that I live thousands of miles away from them, and we moved here for my spouse's health, and we moved here somewhat to be near our girlfriend. But in reality, moving here was so beneficial for me because I think there was a part of me that was still too attached to them to not be somewhat in denial myself about what kind of people they are. And I would try to make excuses for it and forgive it. That my dad didn't come to my wedding, but at least he doesn't think I'm going to hell. That, he's got how many guns locked in a safe at his house? How much money has he given to the NRA? My birth mother, when she goes on about all the conspiracy theories and crap, it's like, she's crazy. I know she has mental health disorders. I know she's just addicted to lies. Like she's addicted to her own lies. She's addicted to her religious lies. She's addicted to her political lies. She just can't stop. She is a compulsive liar, and she is drawn to lies. The more paranoid a thing is, the more she wants to accept it. She is not a rational person. But I made so many excuses for my father, when in reality, he's not very rational either. I flat out asked him to be a good role model for me as I became a man. I asked him. I told him, I need a good role model. Be that for me. And not only did he refuse to do so, but he seems to have fully embraced all of the things that are the opposite of being a good role model. I've got aunts who are so missing out on life and don't even realize it, and they defend their men who are acting like fools. I've got cousins who I've got siblings, and I don't understand how he ever became president in the first place. But one of the proudest things I can say is I never voted for him. I never supported him, not once. I've said things against him. I've stood up against him to my own family. And one of the saddest things that I can say is that almost everyone I'm related to, probably 85% of them, the same 85% who disowned me, did. They probably did. Every last freaking one of them. And it's just atrocious. This is what they voted for. And the thing about a lot of them is they knew this is what they were voting for and intentionally voted for him. And some of them didn't think it would ever come to this. Some of them still don't think it actually came to this. I have lived in fear of my family's condemnation my whole life, when in reality, I wasn't doing anything wrong. And in reality, they're the ones who need to be condemned. So I'm condemning them. I was so scared of being disowned, when in reality, I don't want to be associated with them. I don't want to be the kind of person that they are. I don't want people to, see me around them and think that I'm someone who would ever be tolerant or accepting of the way that they are and their behavior and their actions. But I also just don't want to cut them all off and give up on them, because I do care. I'm the kind of person who cares when I care. I'm supposed to be all celebratory. Instead, my family once again is ruining things for me. Freaking conspiracy theorists. I just hope there's so much prosecution. I wish someone would pass a law. A lot. I wish someone would pass a law that universally you can say anything you want. But if it's not factually based, if there's no sources to cite, whatever it is that makes it not factually based, that it has to actually be said that this is not true. When I was a kid, there was the National Enquirer, and everyone knew it wasn't true, but there were still people who liked to read it and found it entertaining, and there might have been a couple of people who wanted to believe it, but everyone knew it wasn't true. And now people don't know what's true or what's not. And they've created some sort of giant religious war zone out of all of this conspiracy theories and crap. And they're raising their kids to believe this shit. It's not just adults. They're grooming their children, homeschooling their children, isolating their children with this extremism. But it's okay because they're white. They're proud of being gun-toting, and you don't think they're dangerous. They are completely paranoid. Sorry about that. Girlfriend tried to call me. They're completely paranoid. 100% paranoid. And they have weapons. Proudly. And you think they're not dangerous. They judge everyone else. Think everyone else is a sinner except them. And you don't think they're dangerous. They intentionally raise their kids to continue the same bullcrap. They think it's evil for people to exist who are different than them. And you don't think they're dangerous. As someone who was in that and got out, they're dangerous. They're not good people. And they should be prosecuted. Arrest them. Not because I don't love them, but because maybe if they get arrested, they'll be in less isolation than they currently are now. And maybe they can get some psychiatric help. And maybe they won't change because it's just hatred. I don't know. But they're very hateful people. They think everyone else hates them. But they're so hateful. This is a very sad 1 month on T video. But the video I made before this one talked about changes that I'm experiencing. Honestly, they're all still the same changes. I've got a couple more hairs way up here that are coming in stiff. And that's about it. That's different. I mean, it's still oil, still zits, still libido, still bottom growth can't pop out, still. I did watch a gender documentary thing, and I don't know if I have congenital adrenal hyperplasia or not, because it tends to mess with your clitoris and people's anatomy when they're born with congenital adrenal hyperplasia tends to be a boy with a really super small penis, because when you're a baby, you're a girl. First off, flat out, in the womb, every single human being's a girl. And then some of them develop testosterone that makes their clitoris grow out and become a penis. That's all a penis is a giant clitoris. Anyway, when that happens, sometimes hormones shift and stuff in the womb, and scientists think that causes intersex kids. With babies, when they're born, when they look at that stuff, if it's over a certain size, they're like, oh, this will be a boy. And if it's under a certain size, they're like, oh, this will be a girl. And if it's in a certain range, they used to do surgery on it and just mess it up and force the child into a gender. They did that for decades, and they still do it a lot to this day. And it messes kids up. Messes them up real bad. What's strange to me is, if anything, I have this, like, tiniest, least developed clitoris ever. Like, I've seen a lot of girls naked, having been a very active lesbian and all of that. I've seen a lot of them, and it doesn't look like any other girls. And I don't know if that falls in line with that or not, because congenital adrenal hyperplasia, it was suggested to me that I might have that, but wouldn't it make things bigger, not minuscule? I don't know. I don't know if that's a possibility. I know you can be intersex even if you don't have congenital adrenal hyperplasia, so it's not, I mean, there's people who have chromosomes that don't match the normal whatever expectation. I mean, people are like, oh, there's only 2 sets of chromosomes. That's bullcrap. If you look it up scientifically, there's 6 types of sets of chromosome, which is interesting to me because, I mean, this could be completely baseless, me just finding something neat, but I find it neat. I do find it neat that in classical, original Jewish history, there actually were 6 genders. And we don't know a lot about those 6 genders, but they were doing things in a much more progressive way than we do it now, way back in ancient history. And the 6 genders that there were, I don't know, amuses me that there's also 6 different types of chromosomes for human beings. 6 different XY combinations or whatever. People are like, oh, there's only boy and girl, but naturally we produce things that are in between boy and girl, and then they figure out what they are as they grow up. Their brains develop and have an identity. And not everyone's gender matches their sex. It's just the truth. And honestly, some people's sex doesn't fall into either or, it falls somewhere in the middle because that's just how they're born. It's not rocket science, but it is definitely science. And I don't understand people who don't accept that because it's always been that way. There's always been people who were born that way. It's not like it's a brand new thing. And it's very accepted in a lot of cultures in the world. It's actually a very modern stance that that's not an accepted thing. Almost every tribe amongst Native Americans accepted it. In India, it's been accepted for so many generations. It's thousands of years. Um, Samoa, it's totally accepted. It's pretty common in parts of Asia that it's pretty accepted. Like it's just a natural thing that happens, that there's people who don't fall into male or female in a lot of cultures, including ancient Judaism, which supposedly is what Christianity is founded on. And yet Christianity is like one of the biggest proponents of, oh no, there can only be man and only be woman. And it's like, but that's not actually how people are born. I don't know what I am. I know by definition you can be intersex even if it's not your sex organs that are, the in-betweeners, that your chromosomes and your hormones, if they're, in-betweeners or whatever, that also falls under intersex. So no matter what, I am considered technically intersex. But I do wonder about the deformity or whatever of my own, way I was born. Like, that again, I got no choice in. It's not a spiritual issue at all. It's just how I popped out. But it's weird to me that I don't know what to call it or what to say about it or anything. I don't know. I just don't know. And then again, I don't know if someone with congenital adrenal hyperplasia can have essentially like I know there's lots of people who can be born with a micro penis, but can you be born with a micro and that still be, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know the answers to these things. I've tried learning about stuff some so that I'm not completely uneducated, but honestly, I just don't know. And I don't know who to ask. And there's a lot of opinions about a lot of stuff online. And in reality, it's not a studied enough thing. Like, there really needs to be more studies on this stuff, but it's been so socially unacceptable for so long. And then doctors just automatically tell parents when their baby comes out, oh, your baby needs a little surgery to fix them. Which was started by a guy, by the way, who intentionally chopped the little penis off of a boy who was a twin with another boy and turned a twin into a girl intentionally and had that kid raised as a girl. And then the twin brother raised as a boy to try to prove his theory that nurturing could turn the gender of a child. And then he wrote a bunch of papers about how successful it was and everything else. And the kid was miserable. And by 14, he went back to being a boy. And then they told him he had been a boy. And he was so happy and he was so excited because he had never felt like a girl. Nurture doesn't force out your gender. He went to try to prove that and actually proved the opposite. A lot of studies, there's been some pretty good ones, have come out that show that kids who had, been born with adrenal, or you know what I'm trying to say, hyperplasia, congenital adrenal hyperplasia. They did a study on just that, and the kids getting surgeries when they were like babies and stuff, and being raised as a certain gender, and over a third of the kids didn't be the gender that they were supposedly going to be raised as. They didn't want to be that at all. And it's like forcing a kid doesn't change their brain. Their brain knows what they are. Even if you do unnecessary cosmetic surgery to their body because you wish you had a boy or you wish you had a girl and you want them to be socially accepted is your excuse, their brain knows what they are. You can't do a surgery on the brain without like doing a full-blown lobotomy with them not being conscious. And even after a lobotomy, they might still know who they are. They just can't express it. Who knows? When it comes to gender, your birth sex that is declared based on your genitalia that may or may not be fully formed is not your gender. But a lot of people, it coincides. And so then, because they've never experienced the difficulty of having something other than that, they just would rather think everyone gets it that easy. I'm just frustrated and ashamed of where I came from and irritated that people ignore facts so much for such petty reasons. I think fear for some people gets turned into a drug. But I'm not afraid, and I'm not depressed anymore, and that was holding me back so much. And honestly, I think a lot more people than maybe they realize have hormone imbalance problems, especially who might be depressed or something. Like, I don't understand why, if you go and say to a doctor or a therapist or something, hey, I'm really depressed, why one of the first things they do isn't to check your hormones. If hormones can have such a huge impact on your emotions, why isn't that a thing? Why don't they automatically check that? Oh, hey, this person's not feeling good. This person's feeling wonky or not okay or whatever. Automatically, like, protocol, you would think would be, hey, let's go check their hormones. Instead, they put you on a bunch of psych meds and medications for your brain, but all you might need is your hormones to be in balance. I don't understand why it's not just automatic protocol that as people are aging, that part of your physical, as you're growing up and everything, you get checked for what vaccines you need and what shots and all that stuff. You get checked for your height, you get checked for your weight, you get checked for your blood pressure. They check your blood sugar levels and make sure you're not diabetic or pre-diabetic or whatever it is. They check for, your heart and all this stuff. Why aren't they checking your hormones? Hormones affect so freaking much. Why aren't they checking them more? and just saying, yep, here's your hormone levels. Okay, this looks normal. Or saying, oh, your hormones are a little off. Let's see what we can do about that. And then people will feel better because they're not in a constant state of imbalance. Like, one of the biggest reasons that cooking with so much plastic can be dangerous is because specifically when plastic leaks into your food and you eat it, it messes with your hormones. That's why microwaving in plastic, is considered to be a bad thing, especially if it's the ones that are like V or V3 or whatever on the bottom. You can check. They mess with your hormones. BPAs mess with your hormones if you cook with them and eat with them and everything. So you want to keep that out of your food and keep it, within non-toxic levels, specifically because the toxic thing about it is it messing with your hormones. I don't understand why we don't check more, because we still are using those plastics in like everything. Like, there could be less depressed people. And I'm not saying it'll fix everybody. There are people who do have psychological reasons for their disorders and for their depression. Absolutely, 100%. There are people who don't get a cure with our current know-how. But in our current know-how, we do know that hormones can affect that. So why aren't we checking it? I don't understand that at all. I don't understand why that's not just normal protocol. Like, every doctor isn't just doing that automatically. I don't know. Anyway. If you want to know what changes I've had and stuff like that, go watch the video I made on the 6th. Don't watch this video because this video somehow did not end up being about personal changes or whatever very much. Sorry if that got it got switched around, but at the same time I really needed to process what happened on the 6th in the rest of the world. And that wasn't just my own private world. And my own private world is getting a little better. It would be a lot better if I could sleep better. I am still not sleeping very well at night. My brain's just too awake and my body's too full of energy, and I guess my insides are too, I don't know, it's almost like my metabolism's higher. Can that happen? I don't know. Still not sleeping very well, so that doesn't help. But even besides the tiredness and the annoyance of the oil and the zits and stuff, still very happy with transitioning. I still hope that this year I can get my name changed and possibly top surgery and my gender marker changed. That would be extremely helpful to me. I realize bottom surgery can take years and years, but if I could do even part of that this year, that would be huge. And then obviously just being on the testosterone and that happening and everything. Sorry for all the yawning. Anyway, I've got a lot of stuff I gotta get done today, so my name is Lil, this is my voice, 1 month on T. I'm not sure if that's exactly what I said. I might have said hi, this is Lil, I don't know. Whatever, the point is it's close enough. It's it's close enough. Anyway. Yeah. I guess that's what I had to say. I needed to get off my chest. I needed to get out of my system, however you say it. Anyway. Biggest thing about 1 month on D is that means I've had a month of almost a month of just not being depressed. And I think that's kind of a pretty big thing in and of itself. Like, that's a milestone worth celebrating all by itself. So, yeah. Very mixed emotions today. And gosh, I need to stop yawning. Anyway, have fun.